Okay, this is the second video of raw data resources. Since I was rushing at the end, I'm kind of going back through a little bit more and I will continue forward. So again, advantages and disadvantages of dams. The advantages, you might reduce some flooding and there's zero emissions for electricity production, and we all know we use a lot of electricity. However, when they do that, it creates all of this flooding and it covers up the whole natural area the way it existed in nature, which was most optimal, most likely. And when that happens, the people that were in that area that became flooded, they have to go somewhere else. The plant and animal species that existed there, they end up lost because the plants just get flooded out and killed. The animals have to go find a new place to live. So that's habitat destruction. There's impaired ecological services of the river. So you're changing the whole dynamic of what life was like on the river. There's fish that migrate on these rivers, swimming upstream to spawn, and now they can't get there because of the dam. And it causes other streams and lakes that were below that dam to dry up because the water that you normally would get there is not getting there. Alright, so again, on our left, pros, we have irrigation water above and below the dam. We have water for drinking. We have a reservoir that's useful for recreation and fishing. We can produce cheap electricity with the hydropower, and it reduces the downstream flooding of cities and farms. So some disadvantages over here. The flooded land destroys forests or cropland and displaces people. There's a large water loss through evaporation. You've now increased the surface area that's exposed to the sun, like many times over, and so there's more of it that's exposed for evaporation, so it actually evaporates quicker. It deprives your downstream cropland and estuaries, which is rivers and streams, of nutrient-rich silt. You also have risk of failure and devastating downstream flooding. So if that dam fails and breaks, that's a whole lot of water that's coming rushing all at one moment, as opposed to how it naturally would have flowed through there. And it disrupts the migration and spawning of some fish. Alright, so is irrigation the answer? We have a case study, the Aral Sea disaster. It's large-scale water transfers for irrigation stops flow of water into the Aral Sea. That decrease in water flow increases the salinity. There's higher amounts of salts and other dissolved minerals in the water. That increase in salinity means that the fish population is going to decline because the water isn't at their optimal levels anymore. And then there's water pollution. That is a result, and our restoration efforts are to try to make more efficient irrigation. And there's been a dam built to help raise the lake level. But is that necessarily the answer either? No. Alright, so we have natural capital degradation as also part of this Aral Sea. So it's the Aral Sea, it's shrinking of a freshwater lake. This is what it was before. And because of what we're doing, here's where it is now. Over time, everything that we're doing that's disrupting the natural order is affecting it negatively. Things kind of exist in their most optimal way in nature, and if it's not optimal, nature takes care of that problem. When we disrupt it, we ruin stuff that might not necessarily have gone bad in the first place. So is salination the answer? Is desalination the answer? So desalination is removing a salt from seawater. This is a very expensive process because of how much space it takes up and all the other stuff that goes into it. But basically, when you distill water, you evaporate the water, leaving all your salts and stuff behind. And so that's what, when you go to the store and buy distilled water, that's what happens, is it's been evaporated, so it's just pure water. The evaporation and the vapor is caught, and it slowly sinks back down and condenses back down and gets collected. And the salts get left behind. Reverse osmosis is also microfiltration, so they're using high pressure to remove salts. using high pressure and kind of put the water through, leave the salts behind through like a screen of some sort. The problems with these options is that it's very costly. It actually can kill organisms, because you think about the water's got a lot of microorganisms in it too. But it also creates a very briny wastewater. Like a brine is like what you pickle anything in. So it's something that's really high in, like when we make pickles, it's very high in vinegar and then other like seasonings and whatever we might put in it. But then that's why those foods are kind of being preserved like that. But an organism can't live in that. And when you take that very briny wastewater and put it back, you're disrupting the natural ecosystem of the water itself, the original body of water. No different than pumping other wastes into it. There's over 14,000 plants in 125 countries that do this. Saudi Arabia happens to have the highest number. And I mean, you figure with them, there's not a lot of fresh water. They have to do something. But is that the answer? So this is a picture. This is a search for there's a search for improved desalination technology. Right now, like they're looking at doing desalination on offshore ships with solar or wind energy and trying to use ocean waves for power. But they have to build their desalination plants near a source of electricity. And this is an example on a coastline of this process that they are going through to try to make this happen. All right, and so more of how we affect everything. This is deforestation, using of the trees above China's Yangtze River. The trees and anything else that's growing in the landscape actually helps to make the landscape more stable, and it holds more water. When you've removed all of those and done that deforestation, then what happens is that you increase the amount of runoff. The land is less stable, so you end up with more erosion and more flooding. Everything that we do when we are affecting nature has a trickle effect and affects everything else. So like over here, we have a diverse ecological habitat. There's rain, and there's evaporation. So that's the evapotranspiration. It's just that cycle between rain and evaporation. Your trees are reducing soil erosion from heavy rain and wind, making it more stable. They stabilize the soil. When you remove your trees, then you don't have anything holding the water in. You can see that vegetation releases water slowly and reduces flooding because the trees and vegetation are there to hold it. When you take that out, you're increasing the runoff and the flooding because there's nothing there to stop the water and to slow it down. So when we do this, because there's not a lot of evaporation and transpiration from the plants, that decreases, so you get less rain and you get greater amounts of erosion. The wind blows the soil away, the water carries it with the runoff. You can end up with gullies and landslides, and then your rivers get like filled up and dry up because all of the deposition that is taking place, and that rapid runoff creates flooding. Alright, so we got 3 big ideas. One of the world's major environmental problems is the growing shortage of fresh water in many parts of the world. We can increase water supplies in water-short areas in a number of ways, but the most important way is to reduce the overall water use and waste by using water more sustainably. We need to make better water choices. And we can use water more sustainably by cutting the water waste, raising water prices, slowing population growth, and protecting aquifers, forests, and other ecosystems that store and release water. Something else is to just plain stop using like the bottled water. They are doing bottled water in the same way that your tap water is. It's coming from like the same source, and they've bottled it. So now you've created a plastic waste and a water waste, If you just drink your tap water and use it appropriately and sustainably, you're actually doing a lot better. We have coming up some videos as we talk about water resources. So this is week 1 for you guys. I will make sure that this page gets posted on Google Classroom for you as a guide. We have this week doing these notes, and then you're going to watch Poison Waters. That'll be attached in the same exact assignment post. And then next week you're watching Dam Nation, so that's talking all about the dams to have some understanding in that. I'll be looking for some conversation probably. You'll probably see me post some questions for you. I'm going to be watching these things too, so if they're not already built into the videos, I'll be posting questions on Google Classroom for you. And we can talk about stuff in office hours, so I would like you to join the office hours when they are scheduled so that we can talk about these videos that we're watching, and that'll be part of how you get your pass and fail participation. Then we're going to move into Tapped, so this is a video all about bottled water, and then we move into food. When we do week 5, if we are still not in school at that time, we're going to watch this new video together through through a Google Meet, so it'll be just during the office hours. I'll be expecting you, and maybe a second time if we need it, to get on and watch with me so we can assess this video together, because I haven't watched this one. That's kind of where we are at. Make sure you're coming to office hours this first week. We have office hours 8 a.m. Not 8 a.m. I have to update this. 9:30 to 10:30. I'll definitely be on at 9:30. If people aren't around, I will probably go do other things because I have too much to do. I can't just sit there for an hour staring at the screen all by myself. So make sure you're coming to see me for office hours, and email me with your school email whenever you have any questions or need help.